Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 47th ever Highlight Haven interview. My name is Matthew Heiserman, and today we are joined by JMU offensive lineman JD Rayner. JD, it's great to have you on.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get right into it. I just want to start by asking when you first knew that you wanted to play football.
I wanted to play football from a young age. I didn't start until middle school because my mom was always worried about the popular rules about weight and me playing with the older kids. But it finally changed in middle school, so she allowed me to play in seventh grade, and then I transferred to my current school right now, which ever since then.
Mhm. Yeah, and of course, you also received offers from schools such as Massachusetts, Holy Cross, and Bryant. Was there a specific moment when you knew that JMU was the best option for you?
Oh, absolutely. When I came out to the camp, it was the Coach Smith really drew me in and the way he wanted to be able to develop me and like those expectations he had for me.
Yeah, I love to hear that. And, I just mentioned some other schools that you received offers from. If you didn't end up committing to JMU, let's say that didn't happen, what school would have probably been your runner up?
It definitely would have been Holy Cross, you know, that those coaching staff were very close and you know the kind of the way they uh, ran. Obviously, they came from Holy Cross, and a lot of those guys took you know the programs and the way they ran practices the same way and the same intensity, which was awesome to see.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Chesney's from Holy Cross, Dean Kennedy, a lot of the current roster as well. Chris Grotsky, the new strength coach. So
Yeah.
obviously there's a connection between those two schools. And as a senior at Catholic Memorial High School, you started every game at right tackle. What's one thing that you take pride in when it comes to your play style?
Uh, my athleticism always comes first. You know, moving from tight end, I wasn't the biggest this year. Only played at like 265. So being able to kind of get that edge and get out there quick was kind of my biggest thing. And you know, even being a little tackle, I should say, um, the intensity, making sure that even though I was a little undersized compared to the DMs I was playing against, that I was going to come out there and hit them first.
Yeah, and I know that O-line obviously isn't always the most athletic position, but you do have a little advantage because you do play in other areas of the field, which I'm going to get into soon. But as an incoming freshman with the Dukes in 2025, what are you sort of expecting your role to look like? I don't know if you discussed this with Chris Smith already, but what's your mindset?
You know, my mindset, there hasn't been any specific discussions about it, but my mindset is I'm definitely gonna keep myself honest and say that I probably won't start. But you know, being able to make the travel squad and maybe see some reps in there as a third or second string tackle would be awesome. I think it, you know, it really comes down to the amount of weight I'm able to put on. That's really the biggest thing Coach Smith has been hammering down on me.
Yeah, and what are you expecting to be that biggest challenge transitioning from high school football to a Division 1 college?
I mean, I think everyone will tell you that the summer workouts coming in and how intense they are. You know, you just no one can really prepare you for it. It's the intensity of the workouts and how often you're in there, and on top of that, then going to the classroom, studying plays, film, all that. It's definitely an adjustment compared to high school football.
Yeah, and another thing that I hear a lot is not even necessarily talent-wise, but just all the players at the college level are a lot bigger. Is that something you've noticed too?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's exactly like you pick the biggest and you know most athletic kids from high school, and you put them up against each other, and you get them in one little area. And you know you don't find a lot of teams in high school that have all around that size, except you know for the nationally ranked teams.
Yeah, and we talked about this earlier. Obviously, Chris Smith is the current offensive line coach for the Dukes. Have you had the chance to work with him or at least talk with him since committing to JMU?
Yeah, I was actually out there for my official visit out in October, so I was able to, you know, I was able to see like the playbook a little bit and run through it, which was nice, you know, kind of adjusting a little bit, understanding expectations, where he wants me to be, all that, which was great.
Yeah, now are there any current players on JMU's roster that you're really looking forward to either playing with or potentially playing against if they're a defensive guy?
Definitely a guy I'm looking forward to playing with. I'm glad he's coming back is the returning tackle Pat. I was able to see him practice at Holy Cross before and see him play against Boston College. Uh, to see what he did this season with the Dukes, it was awesome, and I'm glad I'll be able to meet him. I also met him at the camp and got to work with him a little bit, so I'm excited to be with him.
Yeah, and obviously I actually had Pat on the podcast a few weeks ago. And this is I think he's going into his 6th season. So I
Yes.
know, especially for a freshman, you're probably going to be able to learn a lot from him. Definitely looking forward to seeing him in the offensive line with you this year. And throughout
Exactly.
your recruitment process, JMU also added offensive linemen Trent Wilson and Parker Cunningham, who will
Yep.
both be incoming freshmen like you. Have you had the chance to work with any of these guys as well?
Yeah, so I haven't got the chance to work with them, but I was on when I was on my official visit, I was with Trent and me and him clicked instantly. I'm excited about that duo coming up, for the next 4 or 5 years. I haven't got a lot to talk about or talk to Parker. I'm hoping to reach out, get that connection going a little bit, but Coach Smith has let me know a little bit about him and how much of a dog he is on that line.
Yeah, and there's obviously a lot of skill that goes into being a good offensive lineman. That said, what would you consider to be the most important attribute for a successful O line?
For across the board, successful offensive line, it's something that was overlooked for a while, but I think is making its way back is athleticism and being able to get kind of capture that outside and being able to pull anywhere, pull your center, pull your guard, pull your tackle, cut off the edge. And I think it's especially in the JMU's offensive style, how fast it is, it's really important to be able to get your offensive lineman to the next level or to the outside.
Yeah, and what's one thing that you don't necessarily think the average fan would know about the offensive line position?
Um, Man, I'm gonna keep on coming back to it. The footwork,
Mhm.
the
Yeah.
athleticism. It's a
Mhm.
lot. You just see a bunch of heavy dudes out there blocking people. I think there's a lot more behind closed doors between the change of direction and stuff that it's required, how quick and like twitchy you have to be to get that punch off and come off the line in the right way to be able to block.
Yeah, now if you're watching an NFL game, are you able to pick up on this stuff in real time, or is it more stuff that you're able to really focus on when you go back and watch film, really watch some slow-mo plays, just see how they do what they're doing?
I think when I'm watching NFL games, I'm definitely watching the offensive D line, the
Mhm,
offensive line and D line go at it. It's awesome to see the guys at the highest level and being able to pick up like different techniques or ways to cut people off, seal
yeah,
the inside, stuff like that. It is definitely easier when you're watching yourself though to go back and film and kind of
mhm,
see what you're doing. But I think while you're watching an NFL game or college game, it is pretty easy to pick up on stuff on your own.
mhm. Yeah, now in high school, you also played defensive line, which we kind of talked about. In your sophomore and junior seasons, you combined for 7 sacks, 14 tackles, and a forced fumble. 14 tackles for loss and a forced fumble. How would you say playing defense has, if it has how has it helped you as an offensive lineman as well?
I was a defensive end before an offensive lineman,
Mhm,
so understanding where the D line is coming from and like that kind of a mentality that you don't see a lot in high school on the offensive line is like that just go out there with like and like punch them in the face. It's obviously it's a lot about doing your job on the offensive line where defense is kind of you can turn your brain off and just hit them. So like having that mentality on the offensive line as I did on the defensive line and making sure that I brought it the first few plays was huge, and then also understanding like what D ends are going to do when I do this.
mhm.
You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
as playing the position, I was like, all right, if I see this tackle step out at me, I'm going to cut in. That type of back and forth. Understanding like, hey, he's going to do this when I do this. Picked up a lot faster for me on the offensive line.
Yeah, so I mean, you're kinda able to, I guess, read the minds of the defensive line, understand what they're trying to do as well?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know we see that a lot from maybe a person who plays wide receiver or cornerback as well. So it's pretty cool that you have that advantage too. Now you played tight end, you've played defensive line, you've played offensive line. How would you rank those 3 positions in terms of which one you like to play the most and which one you could maybe go without playing?
You know, this recent year playing offensive line, and I know because, oh, I'm committed there, but,
Mhm.
just the mentality of it and, like, how gritty it is, I'm gonna have to put it first. It's also learning a new position was really fun for me. It's being able to pick up on new things and how it works. Um, something I I really enjoyed defensive line as well. I was hoping that maybe I'd be able to play that in college at, sophomore, junior year-ish, that I wasn't gonna see tight end, but, so I'd probably go with that, and then, something I coulda went without was tight end, especially in the, packages that we saw at my high school. We played the double T wing T, so it was I was pretty much just another tackle out there to start with. Got to see the ball every now and then.
Yeah, now you sort of hinted at this, but you're obviously listed as an offensive lineman for the Dukes. Would you be open to potentially getting reps as a defensive lineman later in your college football career, going back to that
Absolutely.
position?
Absolutely. It's wherever they need me, honestly. If they want me at the defensive line, then I'll go to the defensive line. I would have no issues. If they think maybe, hey, we'll try this guy at tight end, I'll try it. It's wherever they need me, I'm very willing and open to switch.
Yeah, now there's obviously a lot that goes into being a good defensive line, being fast, strong, physical. What do you think is the toughest type of defensive lineman to go against from your experience?
A guy that just doesn't give up, doesn't take a play
Yeah.
off. I mean, it sucks because you know that every single play he's bringing it, that means every single play you gotta bring it. You got the guys that are really fast, really quick, and really skilled, but sometimes they'll get tired. The guy that doesn't get tired and just hits you every single play, he sucks.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've played in some really important games throughout your high school football career. I know you've played in a few state championships. So, is there
Yep.
something that you do to handle the pressure in these situations? Or are you at the point as a senior where you're not really as nervous heading into these games anymore?
I definitely don't get those same butterflies as I used to, with the stage, but it's definitely a lot of pressure thinking, hey, everyone in the state is going to be watching you. They want to see what you're going to do. In
Yeah.
my case, against King Philip, for the third time, we played them in all three state championships. It's the biggest one this year was against Severian. We had a big home game against them, and they really thought it was going to be their year to win. And that game, I was a little shaky.
Mhm. Yeah. Now, are there any pregame rituals you have ahead of games or any kind of music you listen to get yourself in the right mindset?
I don't know if you know. I listen to Chucky. He is just like he's a rap guy. He's really it though. I mean, I have a few superstitions of like, wearing the same stuff for every game, same gloves, like socks, stuff like that. But other than that, no specific pregame rituals. A nice stretch before, maybe hop in the Norman type boots, but that's just about it.
Yeah, now you said that when you watch NFL games, you're pretty much always focused on the offensive or defensive line. Is there a specific NFL player that you try and model your game after or take inspiration from?
I love Joe Alt. I've watched him since Notre Dame. I've always loved him. He is the definition of what you want in the tackle. He is what 6'9". I don't even know how much he weighs in the NFL now. Probably 330 if I had to guess, and has
Mhm.
like an 8-foot wingspan. The way he's able to capture the edge, and he showed it this year against Max Crosby as his first year. It's remarkable. It really is awesome to watch.
Yeah, now is there a specific game throughout your entire college or football career that you would consider to be your favorite or most memorable performance?
Um, And I know I told you about the tight end, but for my whole career, I had 2 catches against Chelmsford, and it was, Chelmsford I believe that was my sophomore year, it was like a highlight for me. I told you I didn't get the ball a lot, so when the coach finally decided to throw my way, I made the most out of that. Sadly, didn't see the end zone, but I got a few yards after the catch.
Yeah, and obviously JMU beat Western Kentucky in the Boca Raton Bowl last season, winning their first bowl game in program history. There's a lot of pressure for them to continue that same success going forward. What are some personal goals that you have, as well as team goals that you have for this upcoming season and your rest of, you know, the rest of the time you spend with the Dukes?
Team goals, I think we seriously could look at an undefeated season with a bowl game and possibly a playoff appearance.
Mhm.
A lot of people will probably say I'm wrong, but I just this coaching staff, it's something different. The way because a lot of people look, oh, they don't have the stars, they don't have the big recruits, but I think it's more about the fact that like these coaches can really bring a team together. They brought in almost 65 new players last season on top of a whole new coaching staff, and still managed to only draw 4 games and win a bowl game. That's remarkable. You wouldn't see that from a lot of programs. Um, I hope to personally go undefeated. I think, in the conference, we should be able to. Louisville's looking a little scary week 2, but I definitely don't think it's out of our reach. But yeah, that for the team, I'd love to see that. Personal, I like I said before, I'd love to see the travel squad. Hopefully, see some time as a freshman. Kind of get that solidification that I belong in this program and that I'll see the field.
Yeah, and I mean, in terms of that undefeated record, that'll definitely be interesting to keep an eye out for. You mentioned the Louisville game; that's going to be tough. Obviously, Washington State; those are the two big games, and then I
Yep.
think two of the other ones, Appalachian State and Marshall, are going to be two
Yes.
difficult ones. Marshall, they don't have Mike Green anymore, who's gonna go to the NFL. He led the
Yep.
NCAA in sacks last year, and I think Appalachian State is tough for JMU from a mindset perspective. I interviewed Gannon Weathersby, who's a linebacker recently, and in terms of team goals, one thing that he said was just beat Appalachian State because they've lost to them for the past 2 years on game day as
Yeah.
well 2 years ago. That was their first loss of the season. So I think those 2 are gonna be difficult, but I am looking forward to seeing, how those games play out. Now I do have one final question to ask before we wrap things up. What's one thing that the average fan probably wouldn't know about you, just so JMU fans can get to know you at a more personal level rather than just as a player?
That's a good one. Oh man,
And I
you
mean,
caught me off guard with
it can
that
be as
one.
random it can be as random as you want it to be.
I'm from up north. I was born in Maine and moved
Mhm,
down to Massachusetts when I was very young. I've always stuck around up north. I've never, a few trips to Florida every now and then,
mhm,
but I'm a big north guy.
mhm. Now,
Love the cold.
have you always played football in Massachusetts, or did you play football in Maine a little bit as well?
No, I just played football in Massachusetts. Yeah.
Mhm.
I was
Yeah,
able
with
to
that
travel though with my high school, which was good. We went down to Florida, so I got to experience
mhm,
that a little bit.
yeah. With that being said, I can't thank you enough for coming on. I really do appreciate it. Is there anything else you wanna say to the people watching before we wrap things up?
I'm all good, man. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, big thanks to JD Rayner for being the 47th ever Highlight Haven interview guest. And as always, we will see you next time.